Good Saturday evening, everyone. I meant to include this with the blog update, but I ended up my kids on the rise wanting to go to Chuckles, and so we were having some fun over there, and I kind of lost track of some time, and but no worries, we're getting this out when it needs to go out anyway, right? So I wanted to explain one thing about our situation for late tonight into early Sunday morning. I know many forecasts have backed off of snow completely, and I've seen some of you all have shared your what your apps are saying, and that's fine. But just remember that your app is a computer generated, almost like its own little computer generated model. Most apps have little to absolutely no human oversight. So it's just a product that's churned out by a computer, and most of the time it seems to work out, but there are times when you need something a little bit more specific. But anyway, so this dynamic cooling that I keep talking about. So like when it begins to rain and it gets cooler. We notice this the most in the summer when we get a summer shower, and you notice like while the shower is taking place, it feels so much cooler and it's kind of refreshing. That's because that rain, as it fell, it pulled down the colder air that was up above. The atmosphere above us is always colder than the temperatures here at the surface. So in a winter storm situation, sometimes that motion of the precipitation falling really hard can pull temperatures down at the surface to the point to where the rain is all snow. It always starts as snow at the base of the cloud because it is so cold up there. And then as it falls, it begins to melt, and then it comes to the surface as rain most of the time. And so in a situation like this, though, where the cold air is being pulled down from above, that rain is able to stay snow all the way to the surface. And sometimes that means that it'll fall, there'll be snow falling outside, but surface temperatures are not at or below freezing. Some people have a misconception that temperatures of the surface have to be at freezing for it to snow. That's absolutely false. I've seen it snow at 42 degrees before. Just because you're 42 down here at the surface doesn't mean it's not crazy cold up above us and that snowflake able to make it to the surface as it falls. So that's just a little bit of a touch on what dynamic cooling is and why we care about it. It can make a big difference in a winter forecast, and it can cause, like when you get those surprise snows that forecasters maybe didn't tell you about. More often than not, there's about 95% chance that was because of dynamic cooling. Models do not handle dynamic cooling well at all. And because models don't handle it well, your app's not going to handle it well for the most part. So that's just a little bit of a insight right there. So one thing that kind of concerns many of us is that we remember February of '98. So on the evening of February 3rd, we had an area of low pressure that came through the Gulf of Mexico. It was supposed to be a cold rain. I was studying meteorology at that time, and I remember this system very well. The low pressure barreled in off the coast of South Carolina, bottomed out, strengthened rapidly, and strengthened much more than forecast. Dynamic cooling took place on the Cumberland Plateau, and we ended up with 12 to 18 inches of snow. What a lot of people don't know is that snowfall totals from the February '98 snowstorm broke many of the records that were set in the blizzard of '93. And by all definitions, February '98 was a blizzard. We had 50-mile-per-hour winds and very heavy snow. So that is, for all intents and purposes, the definition of a blizzard. So a once-in-a-century blizzard that happened in March of '93 happened again in February '98. So that's why we worry about these things. That's why we tell you all, while there's a better chance than not that it'll be a cold rain or a non-impactful snow because it won't be able to stick. There are circumstances that have been this weather map that I pulled up today. This is from February '98, the weather map that you're seeing in front of you right now. Eerily similar to what we have tonight and tomorrow. If this low doesn't strengthen as much as the one did in '98, then we probably won't see the big snow. But just saying, sometimes surprises do happen. Interestingly enough, 25 years ago, almost to the day, we're dealing with another dynamic cooling complicated situation. So this afternoon's forecast, I said 40% chance of light accumulation, 10% of a significant accumulation, 50% of no accumulation. I have changed that. Now I'm at 50% for light accumulation, so I upped that up a little bit. and 10% for significance. That stays the same, 40% for no accumulation. So I've adjusted my percentages in favor of you snowbirds just a bit. There is still a pretty good chance that we won't see anything. I will say this, those of you in Fentress County probably stand the least chance of seeing accumulating snowfall from this. This time around, it's going to be those of you who don't normally get to say much about. Those of you across the southern portions of the county and the eastern portion of the county. I'm always saying the western edge of the plateau, Monterey, Mainland, but not this time. This time it's the southern half of Cumberland County and the eastern half of Cumberland County. Might as well just keep it simple and say Cumberland County has the best chance of seeing accumulating snowfall from this, whereas Fentress County would have the less. That doesn't mean you're not going to see anything Fentress County, that's for sure. But just as the odds go, maybe just a little bit more favored for the southern portions of Cumberland County. So we'll wait and see. So my meteorologist marked snow scale, 1 inch or less, confidence is high. Grassy areas, elevated surfaces, if we can get those raindrops to turn to snowflakes, I'm still very confident that the raindrops are going to turn to snowflakes. My confidence is lower on how much of that's going to be able to accumulate. So that's the big $1 million question in my mind. I have no trouble believing this system is dynamic enough to produce dynamic cooling on a scale that could change the rain to snow. But we'll see how impactful that becomes. Very interesting, isn't it? The weather on the plateau is unlike any other place in this region. That's something we have to always keep in mind, and the Weather Service is very well aware of that too. And I'm looking at my map right now, and I'm seeing where the rain is falling heaviest down in southern Mississippi at this hour, and temperatures are 39 to 41 degrees, and that's in southern Mississippi. So we'll see how our temperatures fall as that rain makes its way closer to our area. It's going to be an interesting night and a very interesting Sunday morning. So we'll see what happens. It will be the big fat wet snowflakes. And so they do accumulate easily. So I know in '98 when we got the big snowstorm, most of that snow accumulated with temperatures in the mid 30s, and temperatures that day had been in the 40s. So yeah, wet snow can stick a lot more easily. I always joke and say it could be sunny and 75 and wet snow would stick. That's a bit of an exaggeration, but I'm telling you, I see it so often. Meteorologists and people say it's just too warm. It's just too warm. Well, when it's wet snowflakes, things can change. Okay, folks, you have a wonderful evening, and we'll see what happens in the morning. I'll be on here giving an update, and we'll just wait and see. You folks have a wonderful evening. Keep looking up for more weather and keep up with it all. Stay with meteorologistmark.com.